Our mixing with Mike mixing tip of the week is adding presence to a snare without EQ. Now, there's a bunch of different ways to do this, and one of the ways that I'm going to do this today is I'm going to actually do it very simply with like an early reflections. I'm going to create two things here that are going to help to add some air and some presence around a snare. So sometimes when you EQ in high frequencies into something like a snare, what you get is, if it's not an isolated sample or something like that, you'll also get a lot of bleed and you'll start to cause loads of other problems. So the idea here is that just with a couple of simple little applications here, I can actually create a real tonal character sound that I can add on to the snare drum. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to pick a couple of buses. So we're going to kind of do this right from ground up. So it's not like, sometimes it's easy to kind of take these things and sort of pre-prepare them and get them so that, it's like, oh yeah, it's, get it all sounding great and find the exact vibe and then, put it together afterwards. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do it just like straight from the start here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my sends here, which are feeding into these two guys. I'm going to solo isolate them, and for right now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this guy and I'm going to mute the reverb for a second. So the first thing I'm going to start with is just a simple early reflections, and the idea with the early reflections is that I can create a space around the snare that is basically bright or enhances the tonal characteristic that I'm looking for. So when I have this in, right now it's adding a tonal so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to find a shape here and what I'm going to do here is going to open it up just a touch. It's funny how different each one sounds. And they all add like a slightly. All right, so I like that one. It seems to mess it up the least. All right, so let's hear it. That's without it. And now I'm going to shape a little bit of the. I can even mono it up. And I'm going to link this up so I can come up with some kind of variation here. And kind of play with this. So that's without it. All right, so there's your snappiness. Now what's cool about this is that I could gate this down or kind of play with this and just kind of work with this just to kind of shape the snare presence or energy. And it's a little bit, it's more than just adding the EQ to the dry signal. The idea is that by creating a sort of bright, small environment around this, it actually helps to it's sort of like taking something that's a little bit dark or tonally off and putting it in a brighter space so you can really hear the detail more of it. And that helps to get a lot of the snappiness out, which is really, really cool. So that's a really good way, number one. And the second part of this would be to take, and let's kind of work with a plate reverb. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call up a plate. And, oh, open this up. So this is going to be really loud here when... Not that plate. So what I'm doing is I'm doing with the dampening. Because it's such a strong tonal character up there, and what I can do here to kind of enhance this, and I'm just going to show you, this is sort of like a side thing here, which can be part of this, just to kind of get the snappiness out of it, is I'm just going to use a gate plugin, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to key it from a separate input, right? So I'm just going to pick a bus here, bus 17, and from the snare channel, I'm going to feed this to bus 17. I'm going to feed this pre-fader, right? So it's not going to be affected by my fader level here. And then what I want to do here is I'm just going to bypass this for a second. I'm going to kill my output here. So I'm not going to hear the dry. I just want to hear the gated signal so I can adjust the gate. And now really where I want this is not on the little skippy stuff, it's just on that backbeat hit. So I'm just going to clean up the trigger here. All right, so this is just monitoring the sidechain. And I'm going to bring this threshold up. Oh, I'm hearing the early reflection. That's what I'm hearing. Okay, so now... So this sounds a little weird, like really tight. So, but I want this to be really, really kind of crisp and snappy and clean, and I'll show you what difference that makes. And I'm going to do the same thing here for this. And then I'm going to... So now I don't have to deal with any kind of the bleed here. I can even put a little bit of body back into this if I want to. Make it a little longer. The pre-delay is sort of if you want to separate that from the dry sound. So now when I mix these guys in, that's the early reflections. right? And then I get that sort of snappiness of the snare, just what I want. And of course, you can see how quickly I can kind of manipulate that and kind of play with that. But that gate before the reverb, especially on a snare that's part of an acoustic kit, really, really key to making that kind of technique work. And now I can get all the snappiness and brightness out of the snare without gobbing in loads of top end into it, which is like, that's, exactly what you want, so that you're not over exaggerating or bringing out all the bleed of the cymbals, and that creates all kinds of more phase distortions and all of the other fun stuff. So anyway, that's the mixing tip of the week, which is just adding a little presence to the snare without using EQ.